All right, Little Rock, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for another episode of The Block Talk, and I'm fortunate today to be joined by Scott McGehee and Amber Brewer of Yellow Rocket Concepts. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jamie.
We're very excited to have you guys here. You have made a massive impact on our restaurant space here in our capital city and other cities nearby as well. And I have a million questions, but I want to start with first, how did you guys get into business together?
Do you want to take that?
I will let you take that.
Yeah, I met Amber. I was, of course, I started Boulevard Bread Company. It was my first restaurant endeavor. And, you know, I wanted to bring, I moved back to Little Rock from California, and I was missing great crusty baguette and great espresso and cheese and all the gourmet ingredients, which led to Boulevard Bread Company. And after several years of operating Boulevard and pouring my heart and soul into that, I was lucky enough to cross paths with Amber, who was helping me with some branding and marketing stuff at Boulevard, and that evolved into what we have today.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So was your strength always in marketing and branding before you got into this space, and has that sort of evolved into...
It was. I moved here from Savannah, Georgia, where I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and I moved here to take a job with Cranford Johnson Robinson Woods as an art director. I was there for a while and continued to work there, and was an art director at Arkansas Business for a while as well, while I was doing work with Scott. So, and I maintained a job with Arkansas Business and doing some of my own design work for a while until we had probably our fifth restaurant, when it got to be so much that I decided to develop an internal marketing department to handle the workload.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what's exciting about this is from the entrepreneurial standpoint, which is, you know, the point of the podcast really is to highlight and showcase people who have added value, especially in the entrepreneurial space here in Little Rock. And one of the things you've done is taken that restaurant that became a staple. People walk there in the morning, they have their breakfast, they drink their coffee, they meet with their friends, and then they go off and
It's
they do
an icon for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, so the rest of them have now become icons. And what's interesting about that is your guys' mashups and backgrounds are totally different. But together, they work in this symbiotic way that allows you to create these things out of thin air. And so you talk about how many restaurants you have, but what about for Little Rock specifically, which I believe there's 5 restaurants that you have?
5 concepts. Yeah, there's 9 locations, and then Boulevard, I had opened 4 locations before I sold it.
So it's go through the concepts.
So Zaza Fine Salad and Wood Oven Pizza Company, there are 2 of those, one in Conways as well as Little Rock. Big Orange Burger, there's 3 of those.
It's everyone's favorite milkshake in the town.
Spiked milkshakes, yeah, that's and great burgers and fries. Local Lime, which is kind of a Cali authentic Mex concept. There's one in Little Rock, one in Rogers, Arkansas. Heights Taco and Tamale, which is kind of a Delta Arc Mex, we call it. And it's a kind of an ode to the old Browning space that it was born in. And certainly one of my favorite concepts. And then, of course, big Lost 40 Brewing, which is our brewery and restaurant, and just a huge explosion of creativity down there on both sides, the beer and the culinary side.
What's amazing about that is you're having to brand and market all of these things that come out of totally different areas, apparently, from, you know, so you're having to, like, every time you think you've got a concept and you're building it, I'm sure he's throwing at you, okay, well, now we're going to do this.
Turns out she's pretty good at it.
Yeah,
Well,
she's incredible at it, because all those places, and that's why I want you to go through them, is our listeners all of them are Little Rock residents for the most part, and they all eat there. They've all
just
been
to
to
rep
places.
Amber for a second. I mean, she she's always had an eye for all of this, but I don't think she realized how diverse she was in terms of branding and marketing, but also interior design, logo design, menu design, beer can design has become this whole monster unto itself.
And of course, you have a massive job here.
but I mean, she's just the most brilliant in the state and in the region, and she makes everything we do. She makes me look good.
Well,
good job,
Amber.
Amber.
It was very kind. But going back to, not realizing how big it was when we got into it, and all of the different concepts, and asking about how we met and everything. I think one of the things that makes our partnership so great is that, and what makes Scott a great partner and John a great partner and all of our people, is that we're all very open-minded. And I've never worried when we start a new project, because I've never worked with a group of people who are so flexible and so nimble. And sometimes you can work in projects where people, they just are very tight and they just have this idea and you're going to do this one thing. But these guys are very loose, and they're like, try it out.
See if it works.
See if it works.
Yeah.
And that's just how I am. I want to do everything, and I'm a person that's just say yes person. Scott is a just say yes person. And so just that fundamental thing is what makes us work well together, is that just say yes, let's do it. Let's freak out later. Let's go ahead and commit. We'll freak out later. We'll learn how to do it. It'll be fine.
We're all super creative too.
Yeah.
And when
Clearly, the creativity is unbelievable.
And when you go into these found spaces that are sometimes kind of oddball spaces that maybe, maybe two other restaurants didn't work there, but we have a concept that we think will. We're shucking and jiving and changing and giving each other a ton of feedback, and it's a very creative process that evolves. And we have a team that's just really that's just perfully geared towards that process.
And it took a lot of trust from them to allow. I feel very, very lucky to have been given the amount of trust that I have been given, because I'd never done interior design. Or, when I graduated, I'm going to date myself, but when I graduated from SCAD, we were on Photoshop 1. There was no InDesign. None of that existed. So I had to learn all of that on the fly, and it took me longer. There's a learning curve there, and for them to not go with a fancy firm and to give me that opportunity was a really huge thing as, an up-and-coming female, aspiring creative director, which I wouldn't be able to do in Atlanta. I would never get that amount of responsibility. And so I've always felt really grateful for it and just always wanted to do it all. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
I've always been like, cool, they're going to let me do it.
And same on the culinary creative side. I mean, I have a lot of flexibility, and we even our concepts that are 12 to 13 years old. Yeah, I get tired of stuff. We all get tired of stuff. And so that process of always reinventing, always assessing, can this be 10% better? This was cool 5 years ago. Is it cool today? That process is really fun for me on the creative side, and helps keep things fresh and exciting.
Yeah, well, for the record, no one ever gets tired of the Asian ginger salad. It's also just FYI. It's never get old.
One of the best of all time.
It is. But
I'm asking myself, could it be 5% better?
Yeah, I mean, you can put 5% more wonton chips in it if you want.
Yeah, done.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
But that being said, you guys have had this, it's a entrepreneurial experience. It's something that so many people in our city have this desire to build something of their own that they can look at and be proud of. And it's incredible the amount of growth you've experienced over these years. But what about the challenges? I mean, it's always good when you're at the end of it and you can look back at this beautiful picture of what you've built and say, look at how far we've come, look how great it is. But what about when you hit the walls? What about when you can't find the right location or you struggle with a concept? How do you work through those kind of periods?
Never had that problem.
Well,
to be like, what?
The problems, there are so many different types of problems. We've certainly run into walls with things like when you were developing a business, when you start out with 40 employees, and Scott knows this better than I do with having started Boulevard first, but when you go from 40 employees to we now have 650. So there are challenges in that have nothing to do with what people, a lot of people are like, oh, well, what if the food's not right? Or actually HR is a huge challenge. So we've had to learn and grow through that. And so we sought out help and expertise from people who are experts. When we hit a wall with our food or our menu, Scott and his culinary team, they drill into it. They're like, what can we do better? Let's go out, let's get inspired. And I kind of do the same thing. Like I hit a lot of walls with the brewery, because the brewery, it is such a constantly evolving, ever-growing market of people who are very fickle, and so I run out of ideas creatively sometimes.
Pretty much, it's our excuse to travel.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and the thing is with the beers, you have so much more competition on that level too. Is especially in Arkansas, is all of a sudden there is like a big craft beer movement. Where in other areas of the country,
but
this
I will
was happening.
say that there's not a time where we've hit a wall that we haven't been better for it.
Right.
Because we always come out on that other side with either a better perspective or a better product or adding to our team. There just hasn't been yet a time where we have really got in the trenches and solved a problem where we haven't been better for it. I'm really grateful for that too. We've certainly had some failures. We've certainly had some things not go as planned, but
I think generally problems or challenges, I think they energize our group. I mean, when I get feedback from a guest that maybe that's difficult to hear, I mean, that gets me excited because I immediately want to go out and solve the problem and make it better and impress them and then show them what I've done.
Yeah. So, look what I'm going to do then.
Yeah, I thrive in that on that process.
What has been in all the concepts that you developed has been each of they might be independent of each other, they might be the same. What's your favorite one?
Gosh,
I guess if you had to eat there every day for 365 days,
what's the criteria?
Criteria for favorite is you're gonna have to eat there for like the next year.
I mean, I eat it all. I eat at all of them.
Me too.
First thing I'll do is take a step back, and I've aged 20 years through this process, and because I started Boulevard 20 years ago this year. And, one thing that I've realized is I love being creative, and I love cooking, and I love doing 5-course wine dinners, and I love cooking, more highbrow food and then, more approachable food. But what's really evolved with me personally is I love the people, and I care about them and their families. And whether it's my partners or my work family, that's what's really important. And so, I mean, that's the zoom out big picture. But I eat at Zaza 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I will say that too. So my favorite, hands down, is Zaza. Zaza will be 12 years old April 24th of this year, which is super cool. I'm very excited. It's happening during Earth Month and 2020. But I could eat there literally every. Yeah. Well, I'm your branding
Thank
person.
you.
Wouldn't you be disappointed if it wasn't?
I had no idea. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I could eat there every meal, and because it's simple. It's real ingredients. Those don't get old and tired. There is no gimmick. Everything that you eat there is made every day there. It's why the dressings have such zest and tang. I mean, there's 75 lemons that are hand squeezed every morning for the lemon garlic dill dressing. It's my favorite place. And it's such a neighborhood spot too. So just from even a getting to know your neighbors, a people watching perspective, it's fantastic. So that's always my favorite. Now, as far as my favorite project to have created, like in terms of not from the menu side, but just to have worked on, would be our newest
local lime
and Rogers.
Yeah,
because I got to dig in and do. I had a timeline that allowed me and space that allowed me to do a lot of custom stuff. So
and the black beans there are ridiculous,
and they're vegan.
Yeah, and I can't eat black beans at home now. I'm like,
we just put so many chilies and peppers and all kinds of
flavors.
Yeah, they're very healthy, but we just put a ton of fresh herbs and fresh garlic and dried chilies and just all kinds of things to make them delicious.
Yeah, I can't even choose a favorite, so I thought it'd be really unfair of me to go ahead and ask you guys because I can't choose. But I will say that at Zaza the other day, I went in there and my baby doctor was in there eating. I saw him, but I just made sure he didn't see me because I thought I'm going to get some gelato and I don't want him to see this. And the girl behind the counter was so nice. She snuck the contraband, from behind the gelato counter and brought it to me in a paper bag.
Right.
So he never even got to see it. It was just they're family to me too.
I do have a favorite at every location. I mean,
like a favorite meal.
Like Heights Taco and Tamale, I get 3 tamales, chili, hot sauce, crackers, and one fried catfish taco. One a la carte fried
catfish taco.
That's
which has to be an Arkansas specialty.
We're actually thinking about making that into one, and we're going to call it the LA basket, the Lower Arkansas basket, where you get that one filet, you get a tamale, like a little bit of everything.
Well, it's my favorite meal, so I wanted to put it together as a package on the menu, and then at Local Lime, I always get a fried chicken taco, And gosh, I'm admitting this.
But it's funny because people outside of our state are going to be like, a fried chicken taco. I'm flying to Arkansas tomorrow.
But also love the I get chicken and spinach enchiladas there as well.
They are good. Those are one of my favorite things on that menu.
Yeah, now if I could only eat one item for the rest of my life from any of our stores, it would be the roasted zucchini salsa from Local Lime.
Yep.
I could be buried in a grave of that salsa
Yeah.
and just die
And then-
happy. Like it's the best thing on the planet.
This was the worst idea to do this right before lunch with a woman who's 7 months pregnant because now I'm going to have to go do a tour of all 5.
I almost always get a Thai chop salad with a turkey burger on top instead of. I love the ribeye, but my trainer wants me to get the turkey burger.
You know, that kind of makes me
Tell your
think-
trainer, no, I'm doing the Thai chop with a steak.
You're talking about the turkey burger. You know, when we opened, and going back to challenges, when we opened Big Orange, we opened with a patty selection. So you could choose, you know, our turkey burgers are ground every day in-house. And so we had turkey burgers and beef burgers. And then we've always offered, since we opened, a vegetarian patty that's made from, you know, somewhere between 8 and 11 different vegetables and legumes. And with Big Orange, because that concept's so tight and really revolves around the burger, that was one where we hit kind of a wall a couple of years ago. And we're like, we've got to expand it or find a way to open it up a little bit. And so we have recently added a couple of patty options and presentation options to the menu. But that was one that did present a challenge for a little while. And now we're starting to kind of open that concept up a little more with language and what we're offering in terms of receiving
Now
your
we have
burger.
6 patty options.
Nice.
Which are 5 or 6, but we have the blended burger, which is it's half the amount of hamburger meat, all natural, very high quality, coarsely ground, and then 50% of it is sautéed mushrooms and onions and garlic that are chopped
It's
up.
fantastic.
It's,
So
it's,
it's just
it's called
lighter
the
'cause it's half
blended burger.
mushrooms.
Yeah.
And then we have made the veggie patty. We call it the plant patty now because we took out everything, all the animal product, the egg and things, and we've made it vegan. But through that process, the challenge was to make it even more delicious, which I think we
Right.
did. And then we have.
And we're doing a new presentation with our burgers too, so you can enjoy them without, you know, bread, and we're doing burger bowls and different things. So
Yeah.
that's been a fun one and a challenging one creatively to open up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
making a hyper indulgent burger, shake, and French fry restaurant. It's always been our mission though since day one. We had 9 salads the day we opened. That's why
Right.
that's why we call it burgers, salads, and shakes. We always wanted there to be indulgent options, but also lots of less indulgent options and some healthy options.
Well, and that's one thing I was going to talk about next anyways, was a difference between the concepts you've developed and then restaurants you see typically that are trying to just please the consumer and let me just give them exactly what they need. What you told me before was that you've never once looked at the demographic of a customer, but what you're doing is looking at the concept that works overall for you and for your ideas and your creativity. And that being said, you can go to all of these restaurants and eat a meal and not leave feeling bad. You know, you've got the option to eat things that even when I do go and I have the sweet potato fries, when I have my Thai chop salad, and then I have my milkshake, like the milkshake's really the only thing in there that I have to feel bad about, and I don't really feel bad about it.
Well,
So,
first and foremost, if I don't love it, it's not going on the menu.
right.
And that's, I mean, everything kind of begins and ends with that. And then that expands to if my partners and my creative team don't love it, it's not going on the menu. And if for some reason, if something's changed and it's just, it just doesn't excite me anymore, it's coming off the menu quick.
Right. That's exciting. And you have to constantly deal with these changes sort
Yeah.
of on the fly, right? So if he'll be like, change this, you've got to redo the
My
menu.
priority list is I'm sure hers is the same. I have like 4,000 things on my priority list, and on my little app, I can move them up to make them higher priorities or down. And it's, if you read it, you'd laugh.
I love it because I'm very, very restless when it comes to products, and a lot of my background is in set design, advertising, fashion photography, all of that stuff. So I'm used to things changing and being different all the time. And at the end of the day, when you set all of it aside, what my background is, I'm a consumer. I was brought up in a consumer culture. I love it. I love to be catered to. I love advertising. I love messages. And so because I do naturally love that, I want our stuff to be exciting. So I get excited when he comes to me and is like, I want to change this garnish and this. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Oh, can we get new dishes too? Let's shake it up.
He's like, I just wanted to change one thing, and here we are.
Yeah, and I don't ever want to rock, I don't want to shift the bedrock of what makes something great. Like if we've got this chicken taco that is fantastic and it's because of the crunch, I would never want to do anything that would ruin the foundation of the dish. But when he comes up with ways to make it better, or we can think of a new way to present it that's more exciting for our guest, because it is all about that guest experience.
Yep.
I love it. I'm like, let's let that list be a mile long, because it's something new to think about, every day, which is why I like the hospitality industry, because it is all about experiences, and people are looking for new. Food is an experience now. It's not just a meal out, and I think that is limitless and super exciting.
So one of the other things, you guys don't do third-party delivery, which I found out whenever I was having a really big craving for a Zazal salad one day. I'm super pregnant. I called up there. I'm like, hey. They're like, no. So I got in my car and I drove across town to get my Zazal salad because it was that good. And the other part is I appreciate that because it is an experience. And what I feel like what happens when food gets delivered, like, sorry, all my Bite Squad listeners, but I just can't. It takes away the experience of going to the restaurant. It takes away the authenticity of what you feel and smell and experience.
Some food delivers better than others. Like Indian food delivers really well, because it's in those it's in those quart containers or pint containers, and it's really good for 2 weeks. Whereas some food is more what we call a la minute. It's better the second it's made, and then it goes downhill. And I think, as a chef, there are so many things that we cook that I just would not want to serve someone an hour later.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's
even if I can make money doing it, it's not worth it to me.
And there's, a couple of prongs there. One, I think that we may do third-party delivery coming up, but we are kind of slow to adopt to whatever is flashing currently in the pan. And I think that's one of the reasons that, we don't open, once we land on a Zaza and it's successful, we don't open 25. We're slow to adopt things because we, like Scott said about the food, we're not going to do it unless it's awesome. And right now, third-party delivery is not awesome for us because most people want to order during peak times, and that ends up degrading the on-site experience for our guests who have traveled there. And it also ends up degrading a lot of the food that we cook because it is better when it's fresh out. So if we ever come to a concept and open something that works well for that, we will, but we try to just be super conscientious of the people who have made the effort, who are at the store, and that has to come first, and serving those guests well.
Yeah.
And if we can figure it out, we will, but we're kind of slow adopters on that. We were slow adopters on a few other trends as well, which we're coming around to, but we have to make sure that it works functionally for our specific concepts first.
And I really love that about you guys, just because specifically, like I said, like I didn't realize how much I was eating out until that became an option, and then it became I don't ever like eating out anymore because I don't pit that against the experience I'm having at the restaurant, where I don't get that, when I want to go have brunch, I can go to Lost 40 and I have this incredible experience in this cool area of town in this massive building. I get to watch the brewery stuff go on. It's something that I wouldn't get to experience if I was able to just call it home, know. And I appreciate what you said about the food. I hadn't even thought about that, but it's probably not as good.
Well, it's true. Like the pizzas that come out of our oven,
they're wood fired.
It's a true wood fired pizza. It is not from a deck. There are no cheats there, and it does not hold well. It is meant to be enjoyed almost like a street food.
American style pizza has pounds of processed cheese on it, and it's good. It's good for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Like room temp, it's fine.
Yeah.
But Napoli style pizza with fewer, higher quality ingredients that's baked in a 900 degree oven. I mean, it's best the second it's made, and it's great 10 minutes later.
Preservatives in the dough,
and an hour later, it's just not quite the same thing.
Yeah, I also like sitting over there by the wood fire when it's cold, or when you have your gelato.
Best
you're
seat
like,
in the house.
Just sit right here. Yeah.
But
when they take that tray of bacon out.
I think we would like to have some restaurants, that are delivered by third-party deliveries. But I mean,
deliver beer from Lost 40.
Jamie, here's what you can help me convince him to do. I want to open a Zaza ghost kitchen where it's just for delivery.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Me and you.
Let's vote it. Yeah.
Amber hit the nail on the head, though. I mean, when people order from those sites is when we're already packed.
Yep.
And if an in-house guest, if they have to wait an extra 5 or 10 minutes for their meal and they're already waiting 20 minutes,
just doesn't work. For
that's just could we make a little more money doing that? Sure, but it's just not worth it.
Well, I really love the idea of the fact that as you guys have built all these businesses, it hasn't gotten to that point of, I'm just going to do whatever gives me the next dollar. Because what happens when you own a small business is...
we're thinking long term every
Yep.
day. Absolutely.
And I think when you open a small business, though, and at least from my experience at first, when you finally see it working and you see revenues coming in and things are working, you're just like, all right, let me turn it up. I'm going to turn it up and make this work better. And in my industry, that works because it's just more of it is better. But when you're doing something that has to be considered at every angle, the design of the menu, the way that the cups, the big orange straws, which is such a cool effect when you're at Big Orange, all those things have to be thought through so carefully. And so I think it's really speaks
Amber
to
and I are having the straw battle right now.
Are you? Is it because they're not reusable?
We are searching for products that are compostable and so we're. I mean,
What about big fat metal ones?
Well, actually, just like the third party thing. So we're kind of slowly. We've already made steps where we took straws away at certain locations. They're available upon request at others. We have moved to fully biodegradable stir straws. So we're about 60% of the way there. We're currently looking for someone to produce those orange straws in a more responsible way. That's like that's really only our last holdup.
But and that's a good example. We don't rush into it and go buy paper straws that don't work.
Yeah.
Right.
But I just found an agave straw that's made from the fiber of what's left over after the tequila making process.
We think it's going to work.
Could there be tequila in it? Oh, sorry.
So,
Yes.
so yeah, I mean, I've been searching for the right straw for about 3 years, and my partners are like, let's put the brakes on that one because that one dissolves in 30 seconds, or you can't, a milkshake straw has to be thick. It has to be big. And
it takes a certain amount of, so we have to do, when we consider a new straw, we have to do acid tests because those margaritas everyone loves, those are 75%
lime
just
juice.
lime juices.
Yeah.
So we do have new compostable straws for for 2 locations for those, but yeah, it's kind of a slow process, but that's our last hanger outer.
That's so exciting, though, and I like the way that the fabric of this company and these concepts are built together with the integration of everybody's thoughts and ideas, but then also trying to do it responsibly, sustainably, in a way that makes your consumer benefit. I mean, the consumer benefits on every level in this scenario.
Well, yeah, the number one thing to judge everything by and every decision is the consumer experience, and that goes from where you're located to what kind of straw you're using to if you offer third-party delivery, what is it like for the guest?
Yep. And speaking of what it's like for the guests, I do have to ask this question because you go from food and you're a chef and you've got this background and I know you've built a team around this, but how do you go from these restaurant concepts into the brewery concept? I mean, whose idea was that?
That was John Beachboard and Amber's significant other and our partner as well. John was my sous chef at Boulevard Bread Company in the mid 2000s, and we developed a close friendship and relationship. And then we opened, just John and I. Our first concept together was the first Zaza on the Heights about 12 years ago. And Amber was integral, and that's when she really ramped up and started working with our team. And John had a passion, about 6-7 years ago. John was like, man, I would love to learn how to brew beer. He bought all this equipment for his garage.
Yeah, we had it all wired into our garage.
I can't brand this from into the garage.
It started in our garage.
Yeah.
We had brewers over and learned to do it in their garage. And
Google,
honestly,
it's Apple, and then now Lost 40. All were started in
It
garages.
was probably
Right, we're on that train.
probably 8 years ago when they actually started
was 8 years ago.
brewing small batches, and they did that for a few years. And John finally convinced us that, hey, man, I just really want to ramp this up and do this on a larger scale.
And it really came up, I like to say it was kind of born from what you guys were doing at Big Orange,
Right.
because when we opened Big Orange Midtown, we had an incredible bar team, and John has always loved beer, but we put on 100 different canned and bottled beer selections and had our most taps
Right.
that we ever had. And so we were spending all of this time making perfect pairings of beer with all of our different dishes, and just through conversation, we there were a couple of dishes that we wish we had more specific flavors of beer for, but that weren't available. And so we were like, man, if we could make a beer, we'd make this. And so it really kind of, the love for it and pairing it, it kind of bred this desire to just make it
Just do it.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think as a team, between John and Ben and myself, I mean, we were all craft beer aficionados. I think
gosh.
long before the wave
came this direction.
Well,
came
I
this
also like to
direction.
think of, I thought it would be so super cool to have a brewery that has two men at the helm who are chefs. They have been making flavors to please Arkansas palates for 2 decades. Who better to make beer for Arkansas? I just thought
Yeah.
that would
You're
be
doing a
super
great
cool.
job.
There are not a lot of chef-driven breweries.
There's a
And
lot.
so I
There's a
thought
lot
that'd
of
be super cool.
crossover.
Yeah.
You know, and whether it's culinary arts or whether it's brewing beer and developing flavors. I mean, it's all about balance.
Right.
And it's and figuring out what you want to accentuate, and what's something that really pleases the palate. And I think so. Yeah, I think our background as chefs definitely makes us unique in that regard. But we also have hired,
incredible
and-
talent.
Yeah.
And our head brewer worked with us from
Not
day one.
just hired. They're our family. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, they really are. Our head brewer, Dylan Yelenich, he worked with us from day one. He piloted our entire cocktail program at Big Orange. He is an incredible mixologist.
Like 9 years ago.
9 years ago, he wanted to grow in the company, and so he kind of got into the beer thing with us and started learning how to brew beer. And we sent him to Germany for 9 months to become a master brewer, and now he is our head brewer. But he has worked with us on creating beverages for Arkansas for almost a decade now, and he's grown into that position along with us. So I just think that's
It's
kind of a
amazing.
cool
We have,
trajectory.
we have an amazing
Yeah.
microbiologist, Grant, who's the mix master back there in the brew world.
Yeah.
And we just have an incredible. Of course, Omar is one of the greatest brewers in the history of Arkansas, who really helped launch our little seed of a brewery 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And
it's incredible what you've
yeah.
done with the East Village crowd too, because so many people go over there to have that experience at Lost 40. They want to see
Yeah.
the brewery, they want to have the food, but they come after that beer because it is so distinct. It is so specific to this area. And what I love is you can only get it here, really. I mean, this is an Arkansas experience for the most part.
Absolutely. We made the final decision 3 years ago that we would never sell beer outside of Arkansas. We make and sell every single drop of our beer in Arkansas.
My husband
So-
made us pack some in the cooler
Yeah.
when we went to Austin because he was like, we can't get this in Texas. I
That's
thought
kind
that,
of what
and
we
that's
want
kind
to
of
be.
what drew my
you know,
attention to it.
when you talk about drawing attention to Arkansas and highlighting what we have here that maybe you can't get in other states, we wanted to be part of that conversation. How can we help kind of the group statewide effort of setting Arkansas apart, and let's make it a destination spot for our beer. That can be
We
our
have also never
contribution.
opened a restaurant out of Arkansas.
No,
Yeah.
that's what we say about our whole group is that we're Arkansas operated, Arkansas owned, and Arkansas inspired. There is no outside ownership. There are no sales outside of Arkansas that we
And
want
all
to
of
be
us,
to highlight our state.
I mean, I was born in Fayetteville while my dad played for the Razorbacks, and I was raised in Little Rock, went to Central High School, went back to college in Fayetteville before I went to San Francisco for many years, but and then was just drawn back here.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
and
home.
similar to you, I mean, not that I'm not from Arkansas, but when I was in California, I grew up and was raised there. And when I had the opportunity to come here 12 years ago, I was like, oh, I'm never leaving. And I feel like a lot of times people haven't come here, so they don't understand what we have. And that's one of the joys of being able to highlight what you've done on our show is that people don't really get it that are not from here. You can walk around this town and do anything that you dream of. You can turn it into a reality. You can take one restaurant, one coffee shop concept, and you can turn it into 5 with 9 different locations. And you can live that dream and have this massive thing come out of just an idea, just something you thought of. And I think it's incredible that you've shared that story with us, because that's what I want people to know about Arkansas.
It's
to be able to say,
it's a big enough market. There's a lot of amazing creative people here, and I think people here, as much as any other medium-sized market, really appreciate things that are local.
Yeah.
I think people in Little Rock don't want to be another suburb of Dallas where there's a sea of corporate restaurants. I think people really appreciate that there's so much here that's unique and so much here that is local, and there's so many local farmers that surround Little Rock, and so much amazing, beautiful hiking and wilderness, and there's just so much that this city has to offer. But then you expand it to the whole state, and there's just a lifetime of exploring.
Yeah, and I didn't even get to mention that, but a lot of the food that you source is from local Arkansas
Yeah.
farmers, and this is, like you said, it's all inside the state.
We have the best farmers markets here. We have like 6.
Well, and the other part is that we are
amazing.
number 1 in the United States with agriculture. Like, that's
Right.
what people need to know about this state. Like, we are number 1. That's what we do. We feed people. Even Heifer's World Headquarters is here. They know.
52% of the rice grown in the United States is grown in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just launched last year. We partnered with the Arkansas Rice Council and a farmer named Jeff Rutledge in Newport, Arkansas. They are growing rice for us to produce our what is looking like it's going to be one of our biggest beers, Second Rodeo. It's an Arkansas rice beer.
Such a
And
cool name, by the way. I love the can, the whole thing.
Thank
I'm
you,
like,
Amber.
this is not my first rodeo.
It's
It's my second rodeo.
Exactly. Because that's what, to me, that kind of captured the spirit of our group to me. You have that. It's not our first time around, it's usually that second try. It's getting back in that saddle.
Yep.
It's, that to me is like kind of like sums up small business. It's like, all right,
Second
time for that second
rodeo.
rodeo.
It's our version of light beer. It does have two-row barley, but it also has Arkansas rice. It's a lighter beer. It's kind of our version of what of.
It's just
light
a light.
beer.
It's a 4%
but it
alcohol,
tastes really
118
good.
calories.
Yeah.
But it helps us. We wanted to. So our flagship beer is Love Honey Bock.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is at the heavier end of the spectrum, 6.3% alcohol. That is made with Arkansas honey. And so that's kind of at the top end of our portfolio.
Helps
And
with
so
allergies, I've heard.
Absolutely. You need to get that bee pollen. And so we wanted to kind of round out that experience. So that highlights another Arkansas ingredient at the lower end of the alcoholic spectrum, and to have something for the other side of taste. So you've got like a heavier, sweeter beer, and then something really light. And like we were talking about satisfying the palates of Arkansas, we want to make sure that we're doing a little bit of something for everyone while highlighting the state. So
Well, and the amazing rice that goes with those black beans at Local Lime. I was
Yeah.
just thinking, can they just grow it that way, or do you have to prepare?
that is Arkansas rice, but
Yeah. So I love the Second Rodeo though, because it is that. I mean, there's a lot of light beers out there that taste like water.
Yeah.
And the Second Rodeo is in that vein of light beers, but it's incredibly delicious.
And that was another push and pull situation. I wanted, it was my goal. I was like, I really want to, from a marketing perspective, I want to be able to put 100 calories on the can. I was like, that's where I draw the line, And John, the brew team, they were like, it has to be 130 so it can have flavor. And I was like, no good. We can't. Nobody. If it's over 100,
Yeah.
we can't market that. That's not a
So-
message. And so we got but that's how our
So
group
they're
works.
making like 30
now-
pilot batches
Right.
to really fine tune.
So we can
it.
find that
Yeah.
one place where it's still low enough in calories to market around being low calorie, but also has flavor. So we're true to our brand, which is
Right.
tasting great. So we landed on 118.
That's such a good compromise. It's such a healthy compromise. I love it. Plus, what's 18 calories? I mean, no one's worried
No,
about
at the end of the
that.
day, it's all fine. But that landed it at 4% alcohol too, which is when you live in this type of heat. In this environment too, you need that lower alcohol content.
Great lake
sometimes.
beer.
So you gotta have your boat beer or your lawnmower race beer.
Yeah, lawnmower beer. That's a good one. I forget about the lawnmower beer. My husband's always so tired after a Love Honey mow. So we'll have to go Second Rodeo with that.
This is it. Yeah.
Well, just before we wrap up, I want to ask you a question to each of you, same question, but basically just want to know, and I've asked kind of in a different way about this, but when you're challenged as an entrepreneur, some people listen to this show that are trying to start their business. They're either local to Little Rock or they're nationwide and they're looking for a place to go and launch their idea and launch their dream. And I guess I want to know from each of you, your experience having done that in this atmosphere and in this city and in this state. What advice do you have for a new entrepreneur, somebody who just has an idea, a dream, and maybe they do have the funding, maybe they don't, but they're going to encounter some things along the way that you've experienced. And what advice would you impart to them?
It starts with building your own foundation exploring from a chef's perspective. You need to eat a lot of food.
Yeah.
And you want to go to school. You want to get a broad education. and you want to work at a ton of restaurants under great chefs that treat you with dignity and respect and will take you under their wing and train you. You hopefully have an opportunity to go to culinary school. But first place is that foundation. If you're building that foundation, I mean, I was in culinary school and cooking at Chez Panisse and cooking all over the place and traveling, and working for peasants' wages for 15 years before I opened Boulevard Bread Company. I mean, I started cooking in kitchens when I was 15 years old, and but then once you reach that point and you think you're ready, I was in San Francisco, where you need a couple mil to even think about opening in a restaurant, and all the red tape there is insane, and the cost of living. I was living in a flat with seven people I didn't know.
It's a lot of people to cook for.
I just realized, we were my first wife was pregnant with my first child, and I just had this epiphany. I'm like, it's not going to happen here, and I love Arkansas, and so the opportunity to come back here and create something where there's not already 50. And but also put my own spin on it, drawn from my own past and my own family and my own experience, was an amazing opportunity. So put the effort in on the front end, and then find a place or a community where there's people that will be very loving and accepting and occasionally forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good advice.
And that's,
pay your dues too.
Yeah,
Yes.
and Little Rock in Arkansas has kind of been that for us. I mean, our people have been very accepting of our passion and our creativity, and very forgiving at times. And occasionally we have to ask forgiveness because we're not perfect, and we do make mistakes, and we love the feedback, and we love to learn and grow and be a part of that.
What about you?
Well, the one thing I know is that I have never started or accomplished anything by myself. And I don't know a lot of people who have. So I really think that it's not about relationships from the perspective that you need to know the right people. It's about relationships from the perspective that you need to find other people that will work as hard as you do. I think that every opportunity that I have had is mostly due to the fact that I will learn how to I come with the skills. So I have tried to accumulate every skill that I can along the way. And I think it's really important if you're trying to start a business that you know how to do every part of the job, or at least learn as much as you can about it. I would never try to start a restaurant and not know how to cook, or how to run the dishwasher, or how to do the basic finances. I think it's really important that you totally understand the nuts and bolts of what you do first. And from a design perspective, that's true too. I've having people that you work with that you trust, and I think just getting in and into the trenches and getting some of that experience puts you in a position where other people will trust you when those opportunities do come along. I've been asked a lot, well, what's the magic bullet? Oh, was it because is your success in what you've done so far because you went to art school? I'm like, absolutely not. None of these skills came from that. It's constant building along the way. So I just think it's super, super important that if you want to start something new, that you understand how to do every little piece of it yourself, so that you know who you can actually trust when it comes time to build a team. And I think that shows itself when you go to someone, like if you're going to a bank to look for an investment, when they know that you know how to actually do the job, when you're not somebody who maybe is an accountant who's never run a restaurant but just wants some money to open one. That's a very different thing than when you have a chef come to you who's been working and gaining experience.
Yeah.
Or I just think it's really, really important to have relevant experience and to get in the trenches and to do the work, because it also it can help inform the way that you want to run the business and ultimately all the decisions that you make for it. So I'm just a big work experience believer, and along the way you're going to meet people who are going to become your network.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as soon as you get into, as soon as you get your team together and you're ready to open something and you're looking for space, and certainly by the time you open and start hiring a team, I think the most critical thing in terms of being happy as an individual, as a human, but also in terms of developing long-term success, is how you treat people. And I think that's very, very, it's a critical message. You have to treat everyone, not because you have to, but because you want to, because you're a good person, hopefully. But treating everyone with love and dignity and respect and appreciation, and developing a team who's your family, that you're there for them in their time of need. And when they're down, you're helping them up. We're all human in this world. So I think that's a big part of who we are, and it's certainly a big part of who I am. And I think without that, not only is success limited, but it's also less rewarding.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking with both of you about this journey, and I'm starving. So we're going to wrap up now because all I can think about is going to one of these 5 concepts and eating my weight in
I'm
food.
going to Local Lime today. I had Zaza yesterday.
And thank you so much for having us. I think that what you're doing is incredible too. Just shining a light on all of the things going on in our state.
Thank you. Yeah, we want people to come here and experience it. Once they
could
come here and they
talk-
try the beer, they're never leaving.
Let's
anyway.
do another.
That's
Let's do another
great.
one. I just want to talk about all the nooks and crannies of the state and all the beautiful hiking
Yes.
trails and waterfalls. And I have been.
You know what we should do?
Yeah.
We should travel to your different restaurants and then
Right.
go have an adventure in that city
Yeah.
and then come back and eat.
Absolutely.
I love this state. You could explore it 24
Arkansas over
hours a
dinner.
day
We'll just call it
for
that.
your entire life. Yeah, it's
Perfect.
amazing.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jamie.
Little Rock, we're out. Thanks for listening to the Little Rock Block Talk podcast. If you're interested in hearing more, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow our page. If you're also interested in sponsoring an episode, reach out to us on Facebook.